now that you guys have had a chance to talk about 6, 7, and 8 with your group, I wanted to be able to talk a little bit about it with you since these are some of the tougher questions that we ask in this section. So for these questions, I'm going to be looking at this equation. I just picked one of them from the front page, so I'm going to go with y equals negative 2x plus 9, but you can apply this to any of the situations that we talked about. So we know based on last unit that when they are asking about the slope, we know that that means change in y over change in x. Well, they told us what y and x mean. We know y represents the distance in meters. So y is actually a change in distance. X represents time. So a change in time. So when I'm looking at a slope, what I'm actually looking at is as time goes on, what is happening to the distance? Because as x changes, how is it affecting our y? That's what I mean when I say the real world meaning of the slope, how one of those variables are going to affect the other. So for example, if I'm using this equation with the slope of negative 2, well, I can see that for my time, I've got 1, and for my distance, I've got negative 2. So what is that telling me? That's telling me that for every second that I'm traveling, I'm moving negative 2 meters away from my start. That's what this slope is telling me. It's as x moves on, whatever our x value is, the y tells me how the distance is changing. So for every 1 second, I'm moving away 2 seconds. If I had a slope like 1/4, that would tell me every 4 seconds, I'm moving 1 meter away from my starting spot. So in the positive direction. So real world, we want to be thinking about, well, what does it mean in terms of my variables? How is distance changing as my time changes? Now, y-intercept, we know we can think about in 2 ways. We can think about it as the point where we cross the y-axis, or we can think about it where x equals 0. In this case, since x is time, what we're really asking about is your start. Where was this boat when we started? So in this case, if I'm using my equation here, I knew that at the starting point, I was 9 meters away from my central measure spot. In problems about money, this might be saying before we started our savings, so what we put into the bank account, what we had when time was 0. Y-intercept means x is 0, so whatever that starting spot is, that's what I'm asking you when I say the real world meaning of a y-intercept. Then lastly, intersection points. Well, we know that the real world meaning in this case, if I have one boat going this way, I have my other boat going this way, that intersection point is where they are crossing. So where are they going to connect with one another? Because one's going this direction, one's going the other one. So the x value is going to tell me how long did it take for them to hit each other. The y is going to tell me where they connected with one another, the distance. So using those x and y's, just putting a real world spin on it. Now our last two. Number 7, suppose 2 battleships travel at the same speed and direction from different starting spots. What are the graphs going to look like? Well, if one's starting here and moving the same speed and difference, and one's starting here and moving the same speed and difference, well, that looks like something we worked with last unit. That's an example of parallel lines. So there's our graph. And if they're parallel, what do we know about the intersection point? Well, there isn't going to be one. Because we know that they're going to be parallel, that means they're never going to hit each other. Now, number 8, suppose 2 battleships are traveling the same speed, same direction from the same starting spot. Well, here's my first one. And if I grab another color, same starting spot, same speed and difference. Well, this time I see it's going to be the same line. So how many points satisfy it? All of them. These two boats are going to be on top of each other the entire time. So whatever happens, they're going to follow the same spot. Any of these points could have been intersection points for them. So that's just kind of a talking through of those last 3 points. I bet that your group was able to come up with some of it on your own. I just wanted to make sure that you could hear some of those answers as well. What I want you to do now is, if you look at the next piece on the Schoology list, you're going to see that I have a link for a section of our Blue Graphic Organizer that we started on Friday. I want you to be copying down the steps for how we can solve a system of equations by graphing. Once you have done that, I want you to check that in with the sub. Then they will give you your homework for tonight, the 4.1 Day 2 worksheet. Any time that you have remaining for the rest of the hour is going to be yours to work on that, and I'll be checking that homework assignment in tomorrow. So use your time so you don't have to worry about as much homework tonight.